Is presidential longshot Robert F. Kennedy Jr. giving up politics to become a rapper? Not quite, but his campaign did release a rap track over the weekend titled Standing on Bidness. RFK Jr.'s opening line in the song says, "You don't have to believe the lies. You don't have to take sides. You can help me heal the divide. As President of the United States, I'll be standing on business and helping the community."
Rappers, oh boy, I'm so glad they gave me this read. Drumma Boy, Boosie Badazz, Hot Boy Turk. I can't even do that one. Angela Stanton King teamed up to write the hip-hop tune, which comes as the candidate is trying to make inroads with the African-American community. It's hard to see if this attempt will have any impact on black voters. Polling from Howard University shows that he's currently just at 9% with this block. So making a bid for black voters?
Making a bid, standing on business. Look, I have never seen one of these kind of cynical bids be effective. I think that many black folks see it as, frankly, kind of pandering and insulting to suggest that currying favor with a small group of not especially well-known, maybe not well-known at all, rappers is going to have some influence with millions of voters, most of whom, the majority of black voters who actually go to the polls, just like in every other group.
That was not a collection of very famous rappers I just happen to have never heard of?
Never heard of any of them. Not that I'm the authority on this, but most voters, black voters, like most voters in any demographic group, are older voters, and they're not a bunch of 60 and 70-year-old voters who are going to care one whit about whether or not RFK Jr. does a rap song. They might, in fact, be somewhat insulted by the suggestion that that should move them as opposed to some of these more substantive material issues. Now, I do think there is a lane. I saw a poll, I think we discussed it on the show recently, that about 45% of black voters are interested in someone other than Joe Biden. That's nearly half of black voters that are willing to take their ballots elsewhere. The question is, why should they go to RFK Jr.? Right. Now, there also was a recent story about how many black people are being motivated by the ongoing war in Gaza as well. Black church leaders tried to push Joe Biden on this issue recently. You know, and RFK Jr. is not someone who has distinguished himself from Biden at all in that arena. If anything, he is much more committed to Israel rhetorically, at the very least, as committed or more committed than anyone in the Biden administration. So I would love to hear more from him substantively as to why he thinks that the black vote, which is clearly looking for someplace else to go, should land with him as opposed to Cornel West, Dean Phillips, or anybody else who's in the mix.
Yeah, it's interesting right now that obviously Biden is polling horribly, as you pointed out, with black voters right now. Trump not picking up by any means a lot of that support, but however, he has improved his standing relative to where Republicans have traditionally been, or for the last several decades been, with black voters. He's polling better than ever before with that demographic, so he is picking up some of the support, which could really make a difference. Again, we're back to, it's a matter of voters formally behind Biden maybe choosing to sit out the election, and that could be the deciding factor. But I agree with you, these kinds of stunts don't really make a lot of progress. I do remember, I think, RFK Jr. Showing support for a couple issues that wouldn't win him any plaudits with sort of libertarian people that he's also courting. But he said about student loan debt forgiveness, he's to Biden's left on that. I don't know if he's to Biden's left on it, but he's with the race-based affirmative action Supreme Court decision for college admissions. He criticized that too. So there are a couple, somewhat identity-ish, maybe focused areas where he could point to policy positions he has that could be designed to win that community.
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways the real story here is, what is Joe Biden doing wrong? And frankly, I'm surprised it's taken this long for his support with black voters to flag. I was frankly shocked back in 2020 when on Charlamagne tha God's show, The Breakfast Club, he was asked not a tough question. I don't think a gotcha question about Black support and how he would address Black voters who hadn't yet decided who they were going to vote for. And he now, we all know, famously said, well, if you haven't already resolved that you're going to vote for me, you, quote, ain't Black.
Yeah.
And that was during a time when millions of people were in the streets for the largest protest movement, numbers-wise, in American history, following the on-camera killing of George Floyd. And there was already some sense that this population, Black Americans in particular, were expecting to be addressed in some meaningful way, at least in the arena of criminal justice reform. That comment did not hurt Biden in the least, it didn't seem. What seemed to hurt him more eventually, once he was actually in office, was the perceived reneging on promises of COVID-era checks, and the student debt issue, I think, is huge. I rarely see a forum of Black people, so younger Black people, talking in which they don't raise concerns about feeling misled about their student debt burden being meaningfully addressed by the president. And of course, the Democratic Party has been making the argument that there has been some relief granted. There'll be routine press releases about $100,000 debtors' debts being addressed here and there. But keep in mind that the initial promise was 44 million student debtors having at least $10,000 worth of their debt being addressed. And this is a more significant promise for Black Americans that often gets memory hold. Biden promised on the campaign trail to cancel all student debt for HBCU graduates of historically Black colleges and universities. That has not been forgotten. So I do wonder if some of the interest in these other candidates really is just a reflection of Black Americans feeling like they were betrayed by Joe Biden and the promises that he made in 2020.
Speaking of RFK Jr. reaching out to other potential sources of support, we've had a lot of speculation on this show, and there just is in the general mainstream media about possibility of RFK Jr. linking up with the Libertarian Party. He had several months ago said he was not going to do that, but he remains on very good terms with some leadership within the Libertarian Party. Their chair, Angela McArdle, is supportive of his journey toward libertarianism on COVID and a lot of other subjects. Of course, it remains the fact that, like the issues I just brought up with you, student loan debt and affirmative action, his past statements about gun control, about climate, about regulation of energy, other things are very anathema to libertarianism.
And even the Israel funding.
That too. So yes, and they specifically have criticized him for that. Actually, the Libertarian Party put out a statement saying, if you're a non-interventionist, an anti-interventionist who supports RFK Jr. and feel betrayed, come join us.
Right.
So it's interesting. Now there was I think we've now had an indication this marriage was probably not going to work out. There was a straw poll in California for like Libertarian Party people, and he came in 11th. So being beaten by people who are total unknowns but are genuinely libertarians. So
what do you attribute that? Because I agree. I've seen Angela McArdle say that she's open to it, but there did seem to be, and we talked about this, I think, when she was on the show, some dissonance between her attitude toward RFK Jr. and the attitude that comes across when you're following the Libertarian Party Twitter account, for instance.
I think the Libertarian Party actual activists, which are a significant part of the party, the people who actually attend the conventions and are doing all the organizing, I don't think they're sold on him whatsoever. They tend towards some libertarianism purity, and they want someone who's like 99% and then some on board with the stances of libertarianism. A famous name would be good for recruitment and for overall, results in the election, but I don't think it's going to come at the sacrifice of someone who's only maybe like 62% libertarian. I don't think that's going to be good enough.
Because the ballot access issues are really significant, and we're seeing it on the left, Cornel West, struggling with a sliver of the war chest that someone like RFK Jr. has, but even RFK Jr. being much better funded is struggling mightily to get on the ballot line, not being a part of a major party like the Libertarians.
The two major parties made it really difficult for other people to challenge them. How about that? What a strange happening.
What a democracy.
Well, that does it for us for today on Rising. Thank you so much for joining us and tuning in.
Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who prefer to listen while you're on the go, we are now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
We're just getting the week started. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Same rising time, same rising place. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.